share. Not that one. Got too many windows open. It's choosing the right one is the problem. There we are. Got it.
I'll give you a 1 minute warning as well, Alistair.
Yeah. Right. Can you see that?
Yeah.
There we go. Right. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Itches project here at Durham University, where we're looking at interseasonal storage of waste heat from our data centers. And there's a number of us working on this, in particular Sophie, who's actually moved on, but she's done a lot of this work. So basically, this is a feasibility project that's funded by UKRI, and what we want to do is test some borehole drilling for looking at storing waste heat from our data center. So the university campus is above two levels of flooded mine workings, and these are in part connected by shafts at various points throughout the two mines, and that connectivity gives us a massive thermal battery. And what we can do here is we can inject heat into one layer, say the bottom layer, and extract cooler water from the other layer, and this heat comes from the data center. You know, in the summer when you don't need the heat elsewhere, we've got excess heat that we have to remove from the data center. We can put that into the mines. This then starts to form a closed circuit. It's also a very efficient way of cooling the data center, because you've got a large supply of cooled water that you can use to take that heat away. Then in the winter months, we can reverse that water flow and essentially extract the warmed water. It'll only be warmed by a few degrees, but it will be warmed up, extract that from the mine, put it into a heat pump, and use it to heat some of our buildings on campus. And essentially what this is doing is it's basically recharging the heat within the mines, within underground, because what we don't want to happen is if we were to install a ground source heat pump, we don't want to run out of heat like has happened in some places, Southampton, for example. We want to be able to recharge that heat with the waste that we've got. And the Durham is a major high performance computing provider. We've got more than 1.5 megawatts waste heat on campus, which currently we're venting to the atmosphere. And we've got vague plans across the university for a heat centre. So the plan is we want to draw 2 successful boreholes into the Hutton seam, which is about 60 metres deep, the Busty seam about 150 metres deep, look at the flow rates. Does the water remain, is it a static body of water? We believe it is, but we need to confirm that. We want to look at the heat decay. You know, once we've pumped heat in, how quickly does it get lost to the environment? How important is that? And we want to confirm how much connectivity there is between these seams, and essentially develop feasibility for this closed circuit heat storage and extraction. Now, what we can see here, this is a map of Durham Centre. We've got in these red dots are kind of the room and pillar mine workings for the Hutton scene. That's the higher scene. We've got the yellow dots are the deeper scene. This blue, this kind of, well, I'm not sure what colour this is, aquamarine colour is university owned land. And then this lighter colour is where all those 3 regions overlap. So this is the area where we can look at putting these boreholes close surface proximity, because you'd really want that for injecting the heat and getting it out. So you don't need to lay lots of pipes across the surface. We can inject it to the deeper mine, pull it out from the shallower one. So current progress, we've identified a drilling location, happens to be this car park here, where all those criteria meet, away from student residents as well, with a power source nearby for powering the pumps and the heat pump to put heat in there. Currently it's out to tender. The tender must be closing fairly soon, within a couple of weeks, I think. We're looking for basically a single package, someone to come along, do the drilling, heat pump, instrumentation, capping, etc. We had some issues with the university insurance. We've managed to pacify them, and the university are now on side. You know, our estates department were initially a little bit wary about this, but I think they can see where the benefit for this might be. So the next steps, hopefully in early 2026, if nothing goes wrong, we'll start our borehole drilling, and then we'll be able to do lots of instrumentation there, lots of experimentation, and then on top of this, there'll be lots of follow. Once we've got these boreholes in, test boreholes, we'll be able to do a lot of follow-up projects that kind of help to kind of characterize what these mines are like. Once we've done that, we can then identify what we found, give it to the university and say, look, you've got a strategic asset here. It's time to start making use of that, and hopefully then they can start to build those plans into their plans for the future heat network across site. And interestingly, in the last talk, we saw this citywide heat network. This could also be very useful to feed into that. So it's probably time to start talking together to find out what scope there is for kind of boosting that heat there. I think that's all I've got to say. So yeah, thank you. Nice and early for you, John.
You did indeed. You caught me unawares. I was typing something in the question or response in the question box. That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much indeed, Alistair. We've now had 3 talks, and there is time for questions. What I will do, if I may, to keep us on track, is to read out some of the questions and reference those who've asked them, and direct them to the various speakers. So the first question was around the cost base, and Jerry Hadwin asked, what is the $37 per megawatt hour based on type, location and development? Is this worldwide or is it for the USA? And do you want to give the answer, Caroline, that you wrote in the text?
Yeah, hi. I was still trying to find the detail behind the link that I sent. So I sent a link through to a document, and it's based. And the only information in that summary document, unfortunately, is it's based on generation of geothermal in 2030, as with nuclear. So I'll need to dig that information out and share it at a later date, I'm afraid, John. There are some other assessments of levelized costs from Lazard that are also coming in at kind of low costs, and like I say, Department of Energy are targeting $45 US a megawatt hour by 2035. So, but yeah, apologies, I don't have the main document.
No need to apologise. The whole idea of the forum is that we can keep the conversation going, and so that will be a key bit to put into that. So a question to Tim. I would be hi Tim. I would be keen to understand these estimates based on those were the numbers you did for employability and so on. That's from Sarah Robinson. Keen to understand how these estimates on economic benefits were made and what the underlying assumptions are. And that's been a number of people have given a thumbs up to that.
Yeah. Okay, Sarah. Well, obviously I will be communicating with you after not immediately after this meeting, but as you probably know, our proposal is that we engage with Durham and indeed Gateshead, engage properly with you and DESNZ to go through the work in a proper way. I mean, this is not a question I can answer in 3 minutes. It's a very complex series of calculations, probably several megabytes of Excel spreadsheets. But yeah, it's all going to be open book to you, Sarah, of course, because we're looking to get justification to approach the National Wealth Fund for the science well. In fact, for both Durham and for Gateshead science wells. And if you like, this is the key pillar of the justification for that.
Thanks, Tim. The next question from John Fenton. John, are you building up data to be able to come back with the final talk of the day? Undoubtedly you are. It's around currently what are the lowest temperatures used for power generation. He's asked that of all participants. I'm beginning to feel this a bit like blind date. I'd like to ask contestants one what lowest temperature they would use and so on. So put something in the chat. There have been 2 numbers posted so far. I put something in Chennai in Alaska's water at 72 degrees centigrade. Clearly the base level outside is pretty cold. And we have a response from both Chris Jackson and there's one other, and Paulo Hernandez Montes de Oca, both plump for 100 degrees or so. Okay. And Sarah Robinson, probably something to follow up on a one-on-one, Tim, is will be great to understand more on the calculations.
Yeah.
So
John, I must interject on the. I'm not sure I support the thesis behind the question, John Fenton, because actually the best thing you can do is drill as deep as you possibly can, and then because of the effect you have on the thermodynamic efficiency of transferring heat into work, and so that's of course why our minimum as Geothermal Wales LLC, is 2 centigrade.
I don't think John would have any challenge to that, but as an engineer, but he's setting everybody up for the final talk of the day.
Oh,
just a bit of fun, guys. Yeah, thank you.
He's just teasing you. Thank you very much indeed, John. And Pete Ledingham, power generation from low temperatures, of course, theoretically possible, but he's saying exactly what Tim said. But there is a very significant trade-off with flow rate. In UK basement rocks where the permeabilities are likely to be relatively low, I think it would be sensible to think in terms of at least 150 centigrade. So we will begin to visit that throughout the second half. Any more questions? Because thanks to all three speakers keeping beautifully to time, and Alistair dipping under the line at a couple of minutes shy
John,
of
there was another one in there from Sarah to Alistair about what the main points, which brought people over to acceptance of the project.
I read that and forgot it. Thanks very much, Lizzie.
We didn't tell the university too much about what we were doing before we applied for funding. I think if we had done, they may have objected more strongly. Once, of course, we had the funding, they began to see it as potentially an asset. At the time, we had a very good sustainability manager who was definitely on board and embedded within estates and was key to kind of showing estates that it was important. So I think one of the key things is they realised there was potential for saving money. They realised they were kind of already spending money cooling the IT equipment, and putting that back into buildings made sense. The insurance companies, to bring them on side, they just had lots of queries, a lot of which were not relevant, but kind of just generic, and we were basically able to answer all of those.
Thanks, Alistair. And Sarah, you've pitched in with 100 to 120 degrees would be my assumption, but some developments research have achieved with 90. Okay. As I say, it's a bit of your guinea pigs or so for that. Helen Meloni has written, I saw some of the policy enablers for using deep geothermal for heat networks, but yet, despite these enablers, we don't see many heat networks using geothermal, especially in Scotland. Why do you think this is? Any of the speakers would care to come back on that? Tim, maybe? Or
no, I can offer. Hello, Helen. Really reiterating what I was getting at before with that John Fenton's question is the most important thing is to be able to provide heat at a very low price, and the best way of doing that is to cross-subsidize the development with electricity, in my view, and the view of my team in Texas. That's what we think is the right way to do this. And so if you're looking at producing heat at 110 centigrade from the Sherwood sandstone at 2.5 or 3 kilometers depth, yes, you can do it, but you are asking a lot of that heat supply to shoulder the burden of that full development. So it makes the economics quite challenging, and it makes it much harder to attract private sector investment, except in certain circumstances. So it's about economics, and that's why I'm pushing the tougher version, which is go a lot deeper.
Thank you indeed, Tim. Any comment, Caroline, before we close a quick break?
Just really quickly, we are trying to progress a geothermal heat network in Cornwall. I think I think it's particularly challenging with deadlines set by Green Heat Network Fund. It's quite complicated. It's very new for developers to understand. Heat networks is hard enough for them to get their heads around, let alone geothermal. And I guess it's always that chicken and egg, you know, actually what comes first. And the heat demand ramps up sometimes really quite slowly over 20 years. So trying to get that business case, and yeah, it's complicated stuff, and you know, you need to be pretty resilient, and you need to keep going for through lots of hurdles.
Just a bit of food for thought. I did a look at numbers of heat networks. There's a really nice recent paper, numbers of heat networks in different European countries. And nominally, according to the government, we've got about 23,000 or some enormous number in tens of thousands, whereas those in Denmark are measured in a few tens and so on. And of course, what we're talking about is different scaling here. We do have a lot of individual buildings, perhaps, which are on heat networks, but very little by way of substantial systems, such as the one in Southampton and the one now developing in Gateshead. So I've got two other comments, one from Bill Kirkup. Hi, Bill, and the other from Tony Roskilly. Caroline, given your figures suggest that geothermal power compares favourably with nuclear, whilst also avoiding the waste issue, why do you think the government is not giving more attention to geothermal?
I'd absolutely love to know the answer to that if anyone else has it.
I think we have been exploring that, of course, with MPs and civil servants. And I think, without being unfair to civil servants, they move very, very slowly. This is work we need to do. We don't sell heat in the UK typically, and we don't therefore have a regulatory framework. But I know folk like Sarah and Jennifer, who worked with her beforehand, are very keen to help this develop. And finally, this will be the last question before we make a break, from Tony Roskilly. Is it possible to exploit a new thermochemical cycle to go below 100 degrees centigrade, incorporating renewable power to provide additional gas compression? Any takers on that to Tony?
That was my comment, basically.
Comment, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, there are new...
Yes.
There are
Carry
new
on.
cycles that are being developed that can work at low temperatures, new takes on alternatives to organic ranking cycles with similar or higher efficiency. So, you know, I guess the thing is that we're only just spinning out from the university our patents in that area, but it is possible, and there are others working on other similar thermochemical cycles that could unlock lower temperatures.
I hope you're able to stick around for. I'm rather plugging John Fenton. I hope he doesn't mind too much, but do stick around for that final talk. And hi, Bobo. Green Heat Network Fund, whatever it is. Key funding for network development is very competitive. The cost for deep geothermal heat is much higher than other low carbon heat sources, particularly large scale air source heat pump or water source heat pump with waste heat. Making deep geothermal of a heat source for heat network is very difficult to secure funding. On that point, I am going to close this first session. You've got 6.5 minutes or so to grab that cup of tea or coffee, and I will see you all bright at 5 to 4, please.